Hello, and welcome to the Support After Abortion virtual conference. If this is your first video that you're watching, my name is Pastor Denise Walker, and along with my husband Brian, we do Rich in Mercy Abortion and Miscarriage Recovery Program. And so, my topic for this virtual conference is I'm naming it You're Not Crazy, You're Just Wounded. And so, I'd like to first give you a little bit about myself and my husband and our testimony, just a very short clip. My husband, then fiance at the time, back in 1980, we found out that we were pregnant. We were living out of wedlock, what is commonly known as shacking. And we had anticipated getting married in May of 1980, and we discovered that in January of 1980 that I was pregnant. And I had had two prior abortions with another man while I was in college. And so I was already post abortive, and I had all the triggers of being abortion prone, meaning that I saw babies as literally the enemy of upward mobility, the enemy of my plans. It was totally about me, I. And and even though we were about to get married, we saw this as a problem. My husband is not able to be on this video. He is the program director for Pro Life Action Ministries, and he is also the 40 Days for Life coordinator for the Twin Cities. But he's asked me to pinch hit for him today. I'm not quite sure if that's really possible because Brian is quite a colorful guy. But if he were sitting here, he would tell you that the decision to abort was his worst decision and the worst moment of his life. He said that he was a complete coward and didn't do what was right. He would tell you that what he should have done, what he should have told us, was to get married and have our child and get on with our lives. But that was not the case. He was frightened too and not willing to take on the responsibilities that a husband would take on. And so what that did was put us in a position where, and put me in a position in particular where I had to choose, or I felt that I had to choose between my baby and my soon-to-be husband, who I was thoroughly in love with and wanted desperately. And so it took us a while to get to the abortuary, but we did. And on January 24th, 1980, my last abortion was performed, and Stephen was put to death. And so, not knowing that, the consequence, that there are consequences for abortion. I mean, back then it was just a blob of tissue, right? And, it's just a medical procedure. No big deal. You'll be able to get on with your life. There won't be any residual aftershocks or after effects. And the bottom line is, beloved, is that that's a lie. And it's a huge lie. Not being a Christian back then, I didn't have a handle on God's love. I didn't have a handle on God's mercy. I didn't have a handle on the fact that when we were made in the image of God, that He wanted to protect that image, to make sure that those images come into the earth. And so Beloved, bottom line is when you kill the image of God in the earth, there is a consequence, and the consequence is born deep down inside of you. Okay, it's not something that is outside of you. It is deep down and most likely buried intensely inside of you. Brian dropped me off at the abortion clinic, left me there. When he came to get me, there was an anger that started in my toes and started creeping up my leg, and I was able to push it down. But throughout the years, it became intensified, and I had no clue as to why I was so angry all the time. So there was another physical consequence to the abortion that we had, and that is that 2 months later I was pregnant again, and I miscarried that child. We had made the decision that we would never have another abortion ever, and so when we found out that we were pregnant again, we decided to just go ahead, let's just have this child and let's get on with our lives. And unfortunately, we lost Gabrielle because of the abortion with Stephen. So they don't tell you that with abortion that there's a weakening of the cervix, and it's a weakening of the cervical muscle. And so as a result of all the openings and shuttings and openings and shuttings of that cervix because of abortions, my cervix was very weakened, and I lost that baby. And so I have had 3 abortions and 1 miscarriage. And I can tell you without a doubt that the same traumas and the same symptoms of traumas that are experienced by those who have had abortion is also the same traumas of those who experience miscarriage as well as stillbirth. We've had all 3 in our ministry and come through our ministry, and we've had the Lord heal their aching hearts, some of whom didn't even know they had aching hearts, because the bottom line, beloved, with regards to abortion trauma, or what is known as post-abortion trauma, which we call PAT, is that abortion always masquerades, and the trauma behind it always masquerades as other issues. And they very often seem completely and totally unrelated. And in my case, that was certainly the case. After the abortion, about a year and a half later, my son Malcolm was born. He was born with multiple handicaps. And being New Age, I thought that that was payment and punishment for my sins and all the abortion and all the killing that I had done. And as a result, that brought me to my knees, and I received Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And then 6 months later, my husband became born again, and we knew that we were forgiven, and so we dismissed anything associated with the abortion after that. We didn't have any cognizant, or we were not cognizant of any residual consequences associated with abortion. As far as we were concerned, since we were forgiven, that must have meant and equaled the incorrect fact that we were healed. And forgiveness, beloved, certainly is necessary to be healed, but it is not in and of itself the healing that you need, and it is not in and of itself the healing that the Lord wants to give you. There are so many underlying issues that factor into your abortion decision, and Rich and Mercy is designed to to want to expose all these issues and lies that we have believed that led us to the abortion, and to dismantle the traumas that go along with that, many of which you or others are unaware. And so let's get into this. What is post abortion trauma? Um, post Post abortion trauma is a stress caused by the abortion experience itself. I'd like to actually read this. It is, beloved, the emotional, psychological, and spiritual distress that is caused either by abortion, and now we know by miscarriage as well as stillbirth. The symptoms do vary, as does the intensity of the trauma. Okay, and it just manifests in so many different ways, and there are 23 recognized trauma symptoms of abortion, and I'd like to go through those with you. But at the onset, these symptoms, they seem totally unrelated. If you were to have one or two, let's say you had unhealthy, unstable relationships, and you also had depression, it would seem to be totally unrelated to abortion. Okay, you would never think or would have never thought that maybe these unhealthy, unstable relationships are in my life because of abortion. That is particularly the case if you were involved with unhealthy, unstable relationships prior to the abortion. But after the abortion, if you've noticed that things got a little worse, it's a definite sign of trauma. That wound is so deep and it is buried so deep, it is often unrecognizable, but it's there. Post-abortion trauma it's like a cancer that eats away at the inner life and peace of each of us. And unlike other stresses, post-abortion trauma, it's not a fleeting, momentary feeling of the blues. Rather, it's the deeper, penetrating, and lasting feeling that something is not quite right, that something is very, very wrong. And symptoms, like I said, there are 23 of them, vary widely. In our case, Brian and I experienced 73% of these traumas. We are a walking, breathing, living miracle. For the first 17 years of our marriage, it was hell, and it was hell on earth, not in a pots and pans flying through the air. We did not have physical abuse going on in our lives. Matter of fact, we were the perfect Christian black couple. We had 3 living children. We homeschooled. My husband was a deacon in the church. He worked at a shipping company, was on his way up in that shipping company, and we were even in marriage ministry. And yet we were complete and total frauds. We know how to put on the face. We knew how to put on the face, but inside, between us, there was tremendous devastation and discord. I didn't trust him. I didn't like him. I didn't want him. I tried to divorce him 3 times, 4 times, and it didn't work. But thanks to God, he got us to Rich and Mercy, which back then was known as PATH, and then he went through Conquerors because Conquerors had a men's ministry. And then as a result, God put us in ministry. such that the devastation that other people are going through, we can help them get the healing through the love and mercy of Jesus Christ. So, what are these traumas that I've been talking about? Well, let's go through them. The first trauma is depression and isolation. Very often, we're depressed and we may not know why we're depressed. Sometimes we're depressed and we know exactly why. Some people are very aware that what they are feeling and experiencing is as a result of the abortion or miscarriage or stillbirth. Others may not know at all, especially if you're just post-abortive, because we have dismissed any importance to abortion, and so we dismiss what are the traumas. Another one is suicidal thoughts. I had plenty of these. And I wanted to die, not because I wanted to die. I wanted to die because I just wanted to be out of pain. I didn't know how to stop the pain. But I also knew that suicide was not God's way, so I never did it. Another one is drug and alcohol addiction. This is particularly telling, and we experienced ministering to those who have been in drug and alcohol addiction rehab through Minnesota Teen Challenge. And what we found out is that if they were not involved with drugs or alcohol prior to the abortion, they certainly became addicted after the abortion. Or if they were already addicted, and an abortion comes through or some other prenatal loss comes through, that drug and alcohol addiction worsens and they literally bottom out as a result. Just tank. Emotional numbness. That is another trauma symptom where we're just numb. We're completely wigged out about anything and everything, and we just shut down. Most people who come through Rich and Mercy are dealing with the depression and they're dealing with emotional numbness. And the emotional numbness, these trauma symptoms, these are what we have experienced because we're grieving and we're grieving silently. And that grief has to go somewhere. And so it manifests itself in what these trauma symptoms are that I'm talking about. Another one is anxiety and fearfulness or panic. Um, Anxiety, let's face it, our society is on anxiety meds. Anxiety has gone up. Mental illness is skyrocketing in our country. Um, and much of that is abortion related. Anger and rage is another trauma, and I had plenty of that. And it's one of the most common traumas that post-abortion, post-prenatal loss people experience. Shame, poor self-image. You may be very ashamed of yourself and have a very poor self-image. And if you had that before the prenatal loss, it's even worsened now. And most people are absolutely covered in shame when they come through Rich and Mercy. But by the end of that, they are totally healed and made well. Eating disorders, that is another one. Eating disorders are especially noticeable after that second abortion. And according to U.S. News and World Report, 42% of women under the age of 48 have had at least one abortion, and of them, 43% have had more than one. So multiple abortions means more than more eating disorders. Nightmares and flashbacks, very common. Nightmares about the abortion itself, or nightmares about the kids, what they must look like. We've had people come with nightmares of all sorts. Avoidance of any reminders of the abortion or babies or pregnant women. You can't handle just the sight of them or any reminders of the abortion. It just totally takes you out. That's another trauma. Annual mood swings around the anniversary of the aborted baby or the due date. Very common. October of each year would cause me tremendous stress because that would have been October and January. January is when we aborted, and October would have been his due date. And so those times of years had always been difficult for me. Thank God I've been relieved of that because of Rich and Mercy. Fear of pregnancy is another one. Atonement baby. That's a baby or a pregnancy that replaces the aborted child. It never does, but that's what we try to do. And so we keep having more and more children in the hopes that it will alleviate our stress about the abortion. As I mentioned earlier, unhealthy, unstable relationships is another one. Another trauma is sexual promiscuity, sexual addictions, sexual disorders. I became very, very promiscuous in college as a result of that first abortion, and it was a pretty bad scene. But we've had people come through the ministry who were sexually addicted and have had sexual disorders. And God has healed them. I mean, it's the word of God that does it. It's preaching of the love, the grace, and the mercy of God, so that people first reconcile with God and then with their child. Codependency is another one. Problems bonding with the opposite sex and or children. Overprotectiveness of children is another symptom. Here's one for the gals and the guys. Excessive shopping, workaholism, churchaholism, other isms. Perfectionism is another ism. Being the perfect parent or the perfect spouse. Being driven, always busy, overwhelmed, overcommitted. And then the last two are pro-life work, whereby we're trying to expunge what we've done by doing good, or pro-choice work, where we're trying to make ourselves feel better about what we've done. And so, beloved, I just wanted to let you know that if you're going through any of this, if you have two or more of these symptoms and you've had a prenatal loss, you are a definite candidate for a healing ministry such as Rich and Mercy. We are located in the in the state of Minnesota, and we have 4 regions in our state, and we conduct Rich and Mercy groups. We are an 8-week program. We operate on free will offering, although we do have a fee schedule that we hope that people would abide by. But we're here because we know that God can put you back together again, that God can heal you of these traumas and set your life back in order. Abortion is not the end of the world. Miscarriage and stillbirth is not the end of the world. We can't change what we've done, beloved, but we can overcome it. And I just want you to know you're not crazy. You may feel crazy. People might even be telling you you're crazy. You're not crazy, beloved. You're just wounded. And God wants to heal you. God bless you. It was a pleasure to be with you today. Bye-bye. Oh, if you'd like to get a hold of us, you can get a hold of us online. It's www.richandmercy.org. And we are located in Minnesota. God bless you. Bye-bye.